Every year, more than 1 million people climb this hill in the Carpathian Mountains looking for the same thing, a vampire. They come to Bran Castle in Transylvania, Romania, the place the world calls Dracula's castle. They walk through gift shops selling plastic fangs and blood-red wine. They pose beneath a portrait of a mustached prince with cold eyes. They come looking for the man who inspired the most famous monster in fiction. Here's what almost none of them know. He was probably never inside these walls. The man they call Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, has a documented connection to this specific castle that amounts to, at most, one army marching past it for a few days in 1459. Not a home, not a prison, not a lair, a pass-through. And the writer who actually invented the vampire, Bram Stoker, never set foot in Romania, never saw this castle, never described it in his novel. He borrowed exactly one thing from the real Vlad, his name. So if none of that is true, why does this castle draw 1 million visitors a year hunting for a monster who was never here? And more unsettling than that question, Vlad the Impaler's grave was opened decades ago. His body wasn't in it. This is the entire Bran Castle story, not the one on the postcards, the real one. Long before anyone whispered the word vampire here, this hill already mattered because of what ran beneath it. In the early 1200s, a German Catholic military order called the Teutonic Knights built a wooden fort on this exact spot. They called it Dietrichstein. It didn't last. Within 15 years, they were expelled from the region entirely, and the fort was later destroyed. The castle you actually see today has a real birth date, November 19, 1377. That's when the King of Hungary gave the Saxon merchants of nearby Brașov permission to build a stone fortress here, at their own expense, in exchange for tax breaks. It took about a decade. By 1388, Bran Castle stood roughly as it does now. And its job had nothing to do with monsters. It guarded a mountain pass, the only real trade route between Transylvania and Wallachia. Merchants paid to move goods through it. Soldiers used it to watch for Ottoman armies pushing north. This was a customs house with a sword at its hip. Now here's where the story most people think they know actually starts going wrong. In 1431, a boy was born in Transylvania named Vlad. That same year, his father, also named Vlad, was inducted into a chivalric order called the Order of the Dragon, sworn to defend Christian Europe from the Ottoman Empire. The order gave him a new name, Dracul, the dragon. His son became Dracula, son of the dragon. Here's the twist almost nobody puts in the title. In modern Romanian, Drac also happens to mean devil. 2 words, 1 sound, wildly different meanings. Dragon and devil, tangled together by coincidence. Bram Stoker, 4.5 centuries later, would find that second meaning in a footnote and build an entire monster on top of it. But the son of the dragon had a childhood built on trauma, not fangs. At around 12, Vlad and his younger brother Radu were handed to the Ottoman Sultan's court as political hostages, collateral to guarantee their father's loyalty. He grew up inside the empire he'd spent his adult life trying to destroy. When Vlad finally took power as ruler of Wallachia, his real base wasn't Bran. It was a fortress called Poenari, a cliff-top stronghold he personally rebuilt, using forced labor from noblemen he blamed for his father's death. That's the castle with Vlad's actual fingerprints on it. Legend says his wife jumped from its tower into the river below, rather than be captured by Ottoman soldiers. Poenari is where he lived. Bran is not. Bran's only real brush with Vlad came in 1459, when his army marched through this exact pass to punish Saxon merchants in Brașov who defied him. He didn't stay. He didn't rule from here. He passed through on his way to punish someone else. Even the other castle people confused for his prison, Corvin Castle, a few hours away, has the story wrong. Vlad really was imprisoned, just not there. Historians place his real captivity at Visegrad, near Budapest, hundreds of kilometers from either castle tourists visit today. Which brings us back to that detail from the beginning. In 1933, archaeologists opened the tomb where tradition said Vlad was buried on an island monastery north of Bucharest. They found bones, horse jawbones, centuries older than Vlad himself. No coffin, no body. Nearly a century later, nobody knows where he actually is. Bran Castle's own history, meanwhile, kept moving without him. By 1836, it had lost its military importance and faded into a quiet customs post. Then in 1920, the city of Brașov gave the castle to Queen Marie of Romania as a gift. She rebuilt it into a royal home. Electricity, running water, an elevator built into the old well. She loved this place and kept returning to it until her death in 1938. Not inside these walls, as most videos claim, but at another royal residence nearby. The communist government seized the castle a decade later in 1948 and turned it into a state museum. It wasn't returned to her family, the Habsburgs, until 2006. None of that needed a vampire. It was already a real story. So if Vlad never haunted this castle, is there anything here actually worth fearing? Two answers, and they are not the same kind of true. The first is history, real, documented, and worse than most ghost stories. Vlad's reputation as the Impaler wasn't invented by Stoker. It came from Vlad himself. After taking power, he invited the noblemen he suspected of murdering his father to a feast, then had them impaled and marched the survivors on a 50-mile forced walk to rebuild Panari Castle. In 1462, during a night raid against the invading Ottoman army, Vlad left something behind for Sultan Mehmed's forces to find as they advanced: a field of impaled bodies. By Vlad's own letter to the King of Hungary, he counted nearly 24,000. Modern historians have gone back through the sources. Vlad's enemies had every reason to inflate that number for propaganda. And a 2025 academic reassessment puts the real, plausible total far lower, around 2,000. Still horrifying, just not the number that ended up in the pamphlets. And those pamphlets matter because here's the part almost nobody tells you. Vlad's monstrous reputation is one of the first mass media smear campaigns in European history. The printing press had just reached Europe. Saxon merchants he taxed into the ground, and a Hungarian king who needed an excuse for using crusade money without fighting a single Ottoman. Both had reasons to make Vlad look like a monster in print. It worked. Those pamphlets outlived every one of them. The second kind of haunted isn't history at all. It's folklore. And almost all of it is newer than you'd think. Walk the halls today and guys will tell you about the White Lady, a noblewoman, betrayed or falsely accused, said to drift through the chapel with a chill in the air. They'll tell you about a monk bricked alive into the walls for breaking his vows, still whispering in the corridors. About children's laughter in the courtyard from some siege nobody can actually date. None of these stories appear in any old Romanian folklore record. Historians who've traced the castle's reputation, not the legends, the actual paper trail, can't find a single one that predates modern tourism. One legend is different. Queen Marie really did live here, really did love this place, and visitors today claim to catch her perfume in empty rooms or see her shape at a window at dusk. It's the one ghost story built on a real person, which somehow makes it both the most believable and the least provable of them all. Underground in the castle's old tunnels, a British paranormal group claims to have had stones thrown at them in total darkness and reports strange green mist drifting through the passages. Worth knowing, that same group reports nearly identical phenomena at other castles across Europe. Make of that what you will. There's also a rumor that Nazi soldiers hid stolen treasure in these tunnels during World War II. There's no real evidence for it at all, and the castle's actual wartime story is almost the opposite. It was run during that period by the family who owned it. Real horror happened here. It just took 500 years before anyone thought to add a ghost. Today, Bran Castle is not a ruin, and it's not abandoned. It's a working museum, and increasingly, a business. In 2016, Airbnb ran a contest to let 2 people spend Halloween night inside, sleeping in velvet-lined coffins set up in the crypt. 88,000 people from around the world entered. The castle even leaned into its own myth during the pandemic, offering a free tour of its torture exhibit to anyone who got vaccinated on site. As recently as this year, an American businessman who also manages Elvis Presley's Graceland estate bought a majority stake in the company that runs the castle's operations. The Habsburg family, descendants of the queen who actually lived here, still own the building itself, but the business of being Dracula's castle now has new owners, on purpose, for profit, more than a century after the myth began. So here's where the story actually leaves us. A castle built for tax collectors and soldiers. A prince who was real and cruel, and also far less monstrous than the version currently sold in the gift shop. A writer who never came here, borrowing a name he half understood, and accidentally creating a myth bigger than any of them. Vlad the Impaler never lived in Bran Castle. He probably never even meant to be remembered as a monster. But 500 years of pamphlets, package tours, and postcards decided otherwise. Maybe that's the real haunting. Not a ghost in the walls, but a true story so thoroughly buried under a 5-century-old lie that even the people selling tickets at the front gate would rather you believe the myth. Which version do you think deserves to survive? The true story or the legend that won?